We came up with this yesterday. It's called On the Line. We want to use some statistics to demonstrate just what is on the line for some teams this weekend. Monday night, the Dallas Cowboys play Arizona. The Cowboys are fighting for their playoff lives. If they lose this game on Monday night, their odds of making the playoffs fall to 9%. And can we get that nice tight shot on Jeffrey Saturday?
0%. Jerry gave them that much chance.
Here's
back
the thing.
week before the first week of the season.
What's the very, very, very old, like the little girl with the curl when she was very good, she was very, very good, and when she was bad, she was very, very bad. Like when the Cowboys are good, they suck me in.
Yeah.
Like they make me believe.
You get baited every
offense.
week. Yeah, you get baited every week. You come in here every week and tell me, and I say, Greeny,
those two right there, be like, oh,
every
week.
You can score a lot of points.
Yeah. I mean, the offense is so good.
Yeah.
Except defense.
The defense
championships, right?
They got to figure out something.
They
don't have to.
Just like a little speed bump. Not even like to stop.
They don't have to.
I got two defensive guys at my table. Okay, let me ask the question.
I can answer the question.
Go.
I mean, it's much like when you ask Jeff about anything offensively, the answer is run the ball.
Yeah.
If you're going to ask me about a problem on defense, blitz.
Yeah.
Blitz is
Yes.
the answer. You need to be more high variance. So, like, either you create a big play, they're going to score one way or another.
Right.
So, like, either you need to be creating turnovers and creating havoc for an opposing offense, or they're going to make a big play on you. It's too late, I think, to try to address some of the wrong.
You don't think it's
for sure.
An 8-minute drive and then score?
No, I think.
Oh, for sure.
They like that. They like that.
And at least you get your offense back on the
Right,
field.
but
you know what?
It does make sense. And you cause a turnover somewhere, a fumble somewhere.
But see, that would assume that guys will be able to carry that out.
That's right.
You know, play after play from a mental standpoint. They can't even do that with playing basic front and coverage. Like they're having a coverage bust all over the place.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of deficiency on this team. It's not just a physical thing; it's a mental thing. Because a lot of the big plays, what are big plays? Big plays are usually mental errors, right? And this football team gives them up over and over again.
Yeah.
So they can blitz. Are they going to do it right? I mean, all their work has to be done in the offseason, man.
You can literally turn their tape on at times and have no idea what's going on. Like no
On their
idea.
defense,
Yeah,
yeah.
on the defensive side. That is as much as exciting as it is to watch Dak, and Dak's going to have a whole lot of opportunities to put up a bunch of big numbers, and because you're going to have it's going to be track meet after track meet. But the reality is, it's too hard to stay efficient.
Look at any company, though. You are what you pay for. And
That's right.
Before the season, they made a very strong claim that, hey, Dak Prescott is going to be the highest paid quarterback. CeeDee Lamb's going to get his. We're going to end up paying all these different players other than the defense. And they let DeMarcus Lawrence walk. They let Jordan Lewis walk. And then they trade arguably the best defensive player in all of football.
Yep.
What seems like now 60 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
So you pay for it. They were looking to be the Bengals of last year. We're going to outscore you, and we're going to do not just enough.
But how did
wild to
that
me,
end
man.
for the Bengals last year, right?
Exactly.
Well, they were in it. The thing about it, the Bengals were in it to the last day. Like the Cowboys, they don't look like they're going to be anywhere near in it to the last day. Go ahead, sorry.
No. I'm just saying, look, think back to how long Jerry has owned this football team and some of the great teams that he has presided over as owner. Think about how they were made up. He went and got Deion Sanders because they knew back then that they needed a shutdown corner.
Yep.
They had Charles Haley. They had Darren Woodson. These are the kind of players that they had. I mean, those aren't just scrubs. Those aren't just guys who are just barely hanging on.
That was in the early stages of free agency, and other people were unsure how it operated, and he was spending money. I think, but you have to give him credit for the talent that they've acquired. They've drafted well.
Where?
Will McClay
On the offensive side.
Yeah, they've drafted well
on the offensive side.
Absolutely. I think that this team has been able to bring in talent, hold on to the talent, and get over the next hump is another question. And I don't know if that falls on Jerry or if that falls on, well, it always falls on Jerry because it's the decisions that he's made, even if it's the coaches and the players that are in the building. But talent hasn't been the issue.
No, I got you. I don't think.
I mean, Trayvon Diggs.
I don't think the changes.
These are good players.
Look, I don't think the changes in free agency and the advent of the salary cap is what has kept this football team from being what it needs to be. It's been choice.
Yeah.
It's the choices they've made.
No, I guess I was trying to explain what was happening then.
No, I got you.
That you're pointing to Deion Sanders, and I'm sorry to steer this towards Jeff, but the difference actually is that line.
Let them know.
Those teams were built, and when they were good in the early stages of Dak, they had the best line in football. So you look around the league, it's a consistent team.
Eric Williams.
But they shut people down on defense.
They bludgeoned you.
Let me give you another team. Let me jump to another team. This one I think might surprise everyone. The people at the desk here have not seen these numbers.
Uh-oh.
If the Commanders lose, on that game is Sunday night, right? If they lose to Seattle, they have a 6% chance.
Yeah.
Kimberly, this is a team that went to the NFC Championship game last year.
Yep.
Obviously, they've had injuries.
Yeah.
They had the nonsense with McLaurin before the season. Started everything on sort of a sour taste.
Yep.
And that still doesn't, just things don't feel right with Washington right now.
Yeah, when you look at last year, to credit the success they had last year entirely to luck, I think is wrong. But you do have to factor in the fact that there's the schedule, what it was. They got a lot of lucky bounces. They had the Hail Mary that seemed to, against the Bears, that seemed to catapult them throughout the rest of the season. And it just hasn't worked this year. Terry McLaurin missed training camp. He missed some games. Jaden Daniels had the hamstring and the knee. We've had other injuries, Debo. And so there's just little things, and their schedule is tougher. Right. So they're not catching those breaks, but that still doesn't mean, just because Jaden Daniels isn't on the field, they should not be able to score points and win games.
They're the oldest roster in the league.
Yep.
You've got a lot of veteran players.
Why?
Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner. You would think that this team would be able to rally around and say, hey, let's look in the mirror. They look old.
Yeah.
I think
They were old. That's why Dan Quinn brought them in, to establish veteran culture. I'm trying to build some guys that I know and try to set the standard for what I expect in this organization. But we knew that last year. Yeah. They were old last year.
Well, they felt that they were very close.
They brought in tons of. They brought in people like
they
went all in.
So they were a regression candidate at the beginning of the season because everyone pointed out the fourth down and the random luck things. But it doesn't change the fact that they won 2 playoff games last year.
On the road.
I mean, that's something that I think that gave them the incentive to go in this year. But things have broken the other direction for them. It's not over for them, but it does feel like a lot of the luck that they had last year is not going to break for them. But you get a healthy Jaden Daniels. If you happen to get in the playoffs, they're still dangerous as hell because he's so good.
He's good.
But to your point, I mean,
he's got to be there.
6% chance if they lose this game. I got one more for you. And Kimberly, you've got a Detroit and Minnesota this weekend. If the Vikings lose that game, they have a 3% chance to make the playoffs. This is a team that won 14 games a year ago. And I will say, my answer to every question before the season began, did they do the right thing with Darnold? Did they do the right thing by putting all the eggs in the J. McCarthy basket? My answer to everyone was, if Kevin O'Connell thinks it's the right thing to do, then I agree. But right now, it looks like that might have been a colossal mistake.
Real quick, the timeline, as you know at home, but to go over it, they let Darnold walk. They didn't franchise tag him. They let Daniel Jones walk. They didn't bring him back. And then, of course, they didn't go after Rodgers. They had Sam Howell, and they said, we're good. And they went and got Wentz in August. J.J. McCarthy goes down. Hasn't been great. That said, J.J. McCarthy is walking into the lineup right now, and we're expecting him to play. The weight of the world is now suddenly on this 22-year-old shoulders who's played 2 NFL games. Yeah. And suddenly it's like, all right, you're healthy, go, lead us there. It's asking a lot from him right now, especially with an offensive line that looks obviously deficient with all the injuries they've had.
Yeah. That's how the season started, though. Yeah. The weight of the world was on his shoulders. Everybody was looking at this kid like, hey, this is a playoff roster. You're the only piece that needs to get us there. We have all the pieces around you. Do it. So I don't think starting now is as different as starting in week 1. But the conversation around Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings front office and this roster and everything has just changed.
And you know why? It's because the quarterbacks that they let walk, so to speak, are ripping it up. Okay? Now people are saying, well, Sam Darnold may lead the Seattle Seahawks to a Super Bowl, and Daniel Jones, people are going, what the hell is happening here? Like, why? How is all of a sudden this guy looked like this? And that's why the pressure on JJ is even more intense right now. And he has to deliver. He has to deliver.
But listen, I understand that he has to deliver. But the part about, like, it's a bit like revisionist history, right? When we're talking about Daniel Jones, he has had a resurgence like, no one believed that was going to be possible. And Sam Darnold, it wasn't. The whole idea that you got rid of Sam Darnold just for JJ, to me, is not the truth. The truth is, you saw what you saw at the end of the season for Sam Darnold.
Last 8 days.
You saw what you thought your ceiling was. We might be 14 and whatever. We might look great. But when it comes down to it, can he take us to the promised land? He is not our guy. So why go?
You know what? It's fair. It's fair to say that about Sam Darnold, but you could also say that was his first good year. He could also be getting better, and you shouldn't throw him out because of 2 games. But I think the Daniel Jones point is the one that you can be harder on because that felt like Daniel Jones wasn't going to be as expensive.
Right.
That felt like moving on from him in order to make J.J. McCarthy comfortable. And it feels like a lot of decisions are about making J.J. McCarthy comfortable. And if you are making your team not
because you felt like Daniel Jones was going to push him for a job.
Yes.
Yes. I don't.
Why else do you not?
If they kept Daniel Jones, it wasn't going to be to push him for a job. It would have been as a backup role because they had a piece.
And then what was going to happen? He was going to get in
there.
there in these last few weeks. It would have been Daniel Jones' job, and that might have been something. You don't know what J.J. McCarthy is feeling when there's a guy in there. Like, why else do you move on from Daniel Jones when he's in there if you're not concerned about?
What's interesting is how these conversations always twist and turn depending upon what the circumstances are in the present time. At the end of last year, it was Sam Darnold's exactly who we thought.
Game.
You know, you shouldn't pay that guy. Look at what he just did in the playoffs. Look at what he did against the Rams. You know, for Daniel Jones, it was like, yeah, it's nice, but you know what? If you put him in any other situation, you know, and he's not with Kevin McCarthy, we made Kevin O'Connell, McCarthy. You may think this guy's never going to ascend to the level that he's ascended to now under Shane Steichen. So, but see, now it's easy to sit and go, well, damn, they should have kept one of those two guys.
Exactly.
But you never would have projected this year.
No way.
Yes.
But that's why,
your job.
That's why those jobs.
No.
I get you.
I'm not saying you never would have. Okay,
No,
there's always that possibility.
I get you explaining it and defending it, but the facts are the facts, and like that's the way you can have a whole bunch of reasons for why you made the decision that you made.
The book isn't written yet.
Exactly.
On JJ.
But
Also,
right now, as of today, they made the wrong choice. Maybe in a week,
They also
feel different.
traded
So you're
up.
saying it's fluid.
They traded up in a draft to get J.J. McCarthy.
That's right.
And they signed Sam Darnold as his backup.
right.
You have to remember the origin of all this. So they were always thinking McCarthy was the guy.
Right. They traded up to 10.
They traded up to get him.
This is why they have hard jobs.
Right.
Because they have to make the decision ahead of time, and we get the luxury of
React
sitting
to
here
it
a year and a half later
And
and telling
tearing it
them what
apart.
idiots they are. Okay, coming up. The key matchup that could